Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. Thank you for your cooperation. We have an interesting agenda today. They're all interesting. We hope to have Councilmember Musar join us at any minute now. We do know that Councilmember Rice will not be here. We have several items we can move on. We have speaker cards on 4 of the items. We have speaker cards on items 1, 2, 3, and 6. And others we could dispose of. Once we get Councilmember Musar here, we could take that action. But for the sake of those who are waiting in the audience, let me go through those motions. No, that wasn't him. All right. Number 4, there will be a action to adopt. 5 will refer to Department of Building and Safety with the assistance of the City Attorney, CAO, and CLA. And we'll read those once the councilman gets here. Item 7, we will move on consent calendar. Number 8, we will continue for 1 week to October 21st. Number 9, seeing no cards, we're going to move to approve. Number 10, we'll continue for 1 week, October 21st, and hopefully in council, October 28th. Number 11, seeing no cards, we can continue in Plum to January 20th, and hopefully in council, February 3rd. We do have our Director of Planning here, Gail Goldberg, and welcome, Councilor Musar. He just kind of went through the calendar right now, and with your second, we can take these actions, and I'll go through this one more time. We have speaker cards on items 1, 2, 3, and 6. Number 4, if you approve Councilor Musar, we can adopt number 4. Number 5, we can refer to Building and Safety with assistance the City Attorney, the CAO, and the CLA. Number 7, we can move on consent. Number 8, we continue for 1 week, October 21st. Number 9, we can approve. Number 10, we can continue for 1 week, October 21st in Plum, October 28th City Council. Number 11, we can continue in Plum to January 20th. And in Council, February 3/09. We do have a report from our Director of Planning, and we don't see a report on item 13. So with your second, we can move those items. Thank you, sir. So with that, let's go back to item, well, let's do this. Let's hear from our Director, Gail Goldberg, because I know there's a lot of things she needs to get done as well. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I did not have a lot to report this week, but I have something that we are very proud of to report this week. Last Wednesday morning, the National American Planning Association announced their annual Great Places in America Awards. Each year, they designate 10 great neighborhoods, 10 great streets, and 10 great public spaces across the country. And this year in Los Angeles, one of our wonderful neighborhoods was designated as one of the 10 great American neighborhoods, and this was the only neighborhood that was designated anywhere on the West Coast, Echo Park. And so last Wednesday, we had a wonderful little press conference with some community members to announce this wonderful designation. And this will get national attention for this neighborhood over the next year.
Great.
We will be hearing about these great neighborhoods in magazine articles and in national press, and we could not be more pleased. This designation is given based on a whole set of criteria, but the most important thing is they look for real neighborhoods that are wonderful physical places, but also wonderful social places. And much of the designation has to do with not just the place itself, but the people who live and who work in those neighborhoods. So we could not be more pleased to have Echo Park recognized as one of the great neighborhoods of America.
Fantastic. Congratulations also to Councilmember Garcetti. I know he's been working in that area for quite a few years now as a council member, and to see the hard work of Jackie Goldberg, the previous council member, who set a lot of the foundation, if you will, of how community groups and community advocates can actually influence the urban environment, and to stimulate the types of changes that deserves that recognition. Truly is they should be congratulated as leaders and community leaders for their advocacy. So congratulations to the planning department, because I know that you also serve as stewards.
Well, from the planning department's perspective, I want to tell you that we do not take credit for this. We recognize that this is the result of a lot of work of a lot of community members and past policymakers. The thing I am proud of with the planning department is that when we receive word that these kinds of awards are going to be given out, we take the time to look at the criteria and to make sure that they know about the wonderful neighborhoods in our city that might be eligible. So this was the result of planners going, this is a great neighborhood, and actually submitting it. So that I am very proud of. I would like to also mention that the planners were very involved last Saturday in the annual Neighborhood Council Congress and participated in the all-day conference. I participated in panels with Councilmember Gruhl on cutting red tape, and many of the planners attended all day and interacted with neighborhood council members and participated in a great exchange of information. So it was a good Saturday.
Well, congratulations, great job. And Councilmember Huizar, any comments? Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you, Gail. Okay, so that takes us to item number 1. Roberto?
Yes, Councilman. Item 1 is a planning department report. It's in response to a motion Weiss-Garcetti, and it has to do with a proposed environmental consulting ordinance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bell.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I'm Alan Bell with the co-study staff of the Planning Department.
Can you try to speak into the microphone? That way they can hear you better. There you go.
The motion was authored by Councilmember Jack Weiss, and the motion specifically instructed the Planning Department to assess the benefits and the feasibility of the Planning Department directly contracting with EIR consultants. The reason why Councilmember Weiss introduced this motion is to address the following issue: whether by directly contracting with EIR consultants, whether this would result in greater transparency, consistency, and accountability in the EIR preparation process. While currently developers pay and hire EIR consultants of their own choosing, the EIR preparation and circulation process is managed by public agency staff as directed by the California Environmental Quality Act. So specifically in the city of Los Angeles, right now, planning department staff determine whether an EIR is needed or not. Planning staff conduct the scoping meeting to determine the issues that will be addressed in the EIR. planning staff review the draft environmental impact report and require necessary changes to ensure the EIR's adequacy and its accuracy. Typically, staff will review an EIR up to 4 times before signing off on its content. Planning staff also oversee the response to comments from the public that are submitted concerning the draft EIR, and planning staff may require revisions to the EIR in response to these comments. The issue before the committee today is whether these current procedures, as mandated by CEQA, safeguard the public interest or whether additional protections are needed. And our conclusion is yes, we do think that additional protections are needed. Specifically, our recommendation today is that the Planning Committee instruct the Planning Department to prepare a new ordinance that would regulate EIR consultants doing business in the city of Los Angeles. As proposed by staff, this ordinance, the Environmental Consulting Ordinance, or ECO, would be structured as follows. First, the ordinance would authorize the Director of Planning to establish a list of qualified consultants through a request for qualifications or RFQ process. Second, the ordinance would require consultants placed on this list to comply with rigorous standards of professional and ethical conduct. And then third, the ordinance would authorize the Director of Planning to remove a consultant from this list of qualified consultants if it is determined that the consultant violated any of these standards of conduct. In staff's opinion, adoption of such an ordinance squarely addresses the overarching issue, which is ensuring that EIR consultants are accountable for the accuracy and objectivity of the EIRs that they prepare. It is a superior alternative to direct contracting, where the developer merely pays the city, and the city in turn pays the EIR consultant. Whether the city simply handling the money would automatically translate into a higher level of accountability and ethical behavior really is quite questionable. Currently, the Planning Department is overseeing the preparation of 58 environmental impact reports. And our mandate from the mayor is to cut the amount of time that is going to be required to prepare and process these EIRs. Right now, the Planning Department manages 17 contracts. Increasing the total number of contracts that the Planning Department would have to prepare and oversee from right now 17 to well over 75 would require hiring additional staff and certainly would have an administrative burden on both the city, a fiscal impact to the city, and really without any direct benefit in terms of the issue that the Weiss motion was trying to get at. The ordinance that we're proposing that the Planning Committee direct staff to undertake today, it's an innovative, creative way. It's a smarter way of doing business. It addresses the issues that Councilmember Weiss asked us to address. And we think that it will go a long way towards improving public confidence in the EIRs for land development projects prepared in the city of Los Angeles, but without imposing the fiscal burden and the administrative burden that direct contracting would require. If the Planning Committee adopts our recommendations today, that would initiate an approximately 6 to 8 month process of reaching out to the community and stakeholders to craft the details of the ordinance, which would then have to go through the regular legislative process, going to the Planning Commission, and then would come back, of course, to the Planning Committee. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I do have a few questions, but before I go to them, I'd like to hear from the public first. That way we can answer all the questions at one time. So thank you, Mr. Bell. Just hang tight, and we'll be asking you to come back. We have with us David Ewing. Would like to come on up. As you come on up, as you take your place at the podium, please keep an eye on the clock. You got 2 minutes, so we can get to your point. That'd be great. Give us your name and address.
Thank you. My name is David Ewing. My address is 1234 Preston Way in Venice. I'd like to say that other cities do direct contracting for EIRs and for environmental consultants. And I think it's a fiction that who pays for the environmental consultant and who chooses the environmental consultant don't have an effect on the work. This isn't to cast aspersions on the companies who do the work, but anybody who's been in that position knows that it does make a difference who you're working for. I would also like to mention that planning department environmental staff is very seriously overworked, and for quite a while they have not been able to actually go and visit job sites. I don't know if this is still the case, but it was the case last time I checked. So for something to be initiated by a consultant that works for the developer, and for the planning staff to not actually be able to see the facts on the ground, doesn't give them the tools that they need to be able to really make an assessment of what's going on. So at least if the consultant is working for the city, they can have a little more confidence that they're getting a full picture. There are probably many permutations. I know other cities work in various different ways in contracting with environmental consultants. So I don't think it's an either-or situation necessarily, but I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. And I must say, it's just in defense of the planners. I know I worked in the EIR unit for a period of time, and I know how overwhelming it can be. And I must say, I have seen the planners actually go to the site to understand what they're reviewing. An individual case might have been different, but
no.
Experience.
I'm not talking about an individual case. I was told by somebody in the environmental department that they had been cut back to the point where they were no longer able to visit job sites, period.
That is disconcerting, but thank you very much. Barbara, would you mind moving the clock so I can see it as well? Just kind of balance it out a little bit so they can be viewed by... There you go. But also for the... There you go. Thanks. All right. Our next speaker, I'd like to call up Laura Solagi. I apologize if I mispronounced her last name. It's Laura Solagi, I believe.
Solagi.
Solagi. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I live in Venice, and I represent the Venice Community Coalition, which has been active in development issues. And I just spoke this morning with a friend of mine who writes EIRs for an environmental consultant agency, and he said that many municipalities structure their relationship between developers and the city by having the city select the consultant. The developer doesn't, sometimes they're given a list and they can make a recommendation, but ultimately the city makes the selection. Sometimes the city just does the selection from the list of qualified applicants in that job. And he also said that in terms of the payment, they can structure, different municipalities structure it so that one thing they do is the developer has to pay staff time, and another thing they do is they also pay in increments depending on the relationship with the developer. For instance, you know, whatever the contract is with the city, the developer would pay in the increments that the city set up, so that the city is never out of pocket on anything. So in those instances, there really is no big cost to the city to do this sort of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Solagi. And our last but not least, Veronica Perez-Becker.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Veronica Perez-Becker with the Central City Association. We first would like to thank Alan Bell and Michael LeGrand for their great work on this. They did a great job in reaching out to stakeholders and doing research and coming back with something that's very thorough. We really appreciate that. We support the planning staff recommendation. We would be opposed to prohibiting developers from directly contracting with environmental consultants. We believe that is a solution in search of a problem, and we don't believe that there is a problem. Under state law, the lead agency already has the obligation to conduct an independent review and analysis, and the developer has every incentive to make sure that the final environmental document is sound so that it'll uphold any challenges in court. And while we do not see the need for eliminating the developer's right to directly contract, there is a huge cost, especially in these very uncertain economic times, to add to the cost and delay of already vulnerable projects. So we are supportive of the planning staff recommendation to create a list of pre-qualified consultants, but to continue to allow the developers to directly contract. The state and the county have already considered eliminating direct contracting rights by the developer, and they have rejected that. So thank you so much for your consideration, and we're happy to support the planning recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. Alan, would you like to come back up? In terms of, well, let's put it into context. This is a 6 to 8 month process you see unfolding that's going to allow for stakeholders to participate in responding to this action.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, are there specific areas that you are looking at geographically, or how are you going to approach the stakeholders on this?
Well, this is going to be a citywide ordinance. We want to make sure that we provide opportunities for input and participation in all areas of the city. So we do anticipate having some public workshops and continuing to meet with some of the stakeholder groups that have already participated to date. What we're asking today is a general direction to go into for this particular issue. Direct contracting, option A, or the environmental consulting ordinance that we're proposing, and then to flesh out the details. But we would certainly provide ample opportunities for the public to participate in the crafting of the specific details of the ordinance.
So my assumptions are that a question like what should be the criteria used to select qualified EIR consultants are the kinds of questions you'll be answering in public.
Yes, those are the kinds of questions that we would not need to get additional guidance from the public. We would want to do additional research with stakeholders, looking at other communities. This is a path-breaking approach. I don't think that any other city has identified this particular approach, so we think that this is going to put Los Angeles at the cutting edge of reform of the EIR contracting process. And as it was mentioned, no major cities in California do direct contracting, and the state had considered and rejected this particular approach. But we do think that in Los Angeles we can do better than we're doing right now. We think that this particular approach will give us an opportunity to provide leverage over the work that our consultants do, and it certainly will instill greater public confidence in the products that our EIR consultants are preparing.
Okay. So again, the question such as who should be on the selection panel will be answered as well, and that's the kind of feedback you're going to get.
Absolutely.
Okay. I do have several questions, but perhaps it behooves us to move this forward. What I'd like to see is a status report, see where you're at in 60 days or 90 days. What would be your pleasure?
90 days would work better for us given our workload in Coast Cities.
Okay, so 90 days, if you can come back with a status report to see how we're moving in terms of getting the objectives of this ordinance completed.
Okay.
Councilor Sar, any questions on this one? Okay. All right, so our direction will be to instruct the planning department to prepare the environmental consulting ordinance and have a report back in 90 days on the status. Thank you. Roberto, next item.
Yes, Councilman. Item 2 is a motion, Garcetti-Labange. It's requesting city attorney, building and safety to report back in 45 days relative to the status of an off-site sign in Silver Lake, and also as to the credits that were issued to Clear Channel Outdoor Advertising.
Okay. Do we have a report on this item?
There's no report, Councilman.
Okay. Then we'll jump right into the speaking cards. We'll start with Duff Marlowe, then Elizabeth Bugard Sharkov, and then we'll have Robert Balter. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Duff Marlowe. I'm a resident of Silver Lake neighborhood. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. Our neighborhood's been suddenly, it's a beautiful green neighborhood. It's a desirable place to live. We've seen property values just astoundingly skyrocket in this neighborhood. We have one of the most desirable elementary schools in the
Sir, would you mind pulling the microphone out maybe, or speaking closer to it because they can't hear you?
Okay. How's
There you
this?
go. Better.
Okay. And in short, it's a desirable place to live. There's a nature trail that's almost completed that goes around the perimeter of the reservoir. I have a few photos pertaining to this. I wonder if the council members would...
Do you want these back?
Not necessarily, no. Okay. So this is sort of these photos are in order, and it depicts this digital billboard in the context of our neighborhood. So there's a little baby boom in our neighborhood. We have a bustling children's park, and it's this billboard is extremely incongruous. It is 17,500 watts. It goes 24 hours a day. It is by far the brightest thing within a mile radius. There are hundreds of homes which face it, and the content ranges from the usual sort of neo-pornographic advertising images, many of them sexually themed. It's just inappropriate for a residential neighborhood to have this kind of bright object amidst us, and with this content as well. But even despite the content itself, it's inappropriate, and it's just an absurd incongruity. I don't see how it could have happened, honestly. And I think it's a mistake. So thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for coming to the
We
city
do
hall.
have quite a few neighbors here, so if anybody's here for the sign, would you raise your hand, please?
Well, you can stand. Thank you very much for joining us. We have a few more speaker cards. Elizabeth Sharkov. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Oops. I'm not that tall.
It's okay. You can just pull it towards you.
I'd like to give you a quote of something what's really ridiculous in our mind. Speaking to the Washington Post in May 2007, Clear Channel Outdoor CEO had this to say about electronics signs, and I quote, "We have the ultimate ability to withstand the whole challenge of consumer avoidance. We are there 24/7. There is no mute button, no on-off switch, no changing the station," end quote. Councilman, I really find this arrogant. And the industry of advertising overwhelmingly hijacks on a regular basis our natural resources in the city of Los Angeles. We have a beautiful scenery, and as a quality of life is the first priority, perhaps, quality of life and safety also, because this is a traffic safety issue, is a first priority to the city council. I really urge you to revisit this issue, and mistakes have been made, mistakes can be altered. So please use your power which your constituency has given, and save our residential neighborhoods and our city from the physical and intellectual pollution. I really appreciate the timely motion of Council President Garcetti's attempt to help its constituency, and I really urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Robert Balter.
I'm Robert Balter. I'm from this block that the sign is in, the billboard is in. And, 3.5 weeks ago, I found that my environment and the character and quality of life in Silver Lake had changed big time. I just don't understand how for a billboard company could put down a couple $100 for a license and, just massively change the character of a neighborhood. That if anybody, even a merchant was to change their sign, I know it has to go through, various committees, has to go, building and safety, they have to get permits, they have to get approvals, and the city gets at least my understanding is the city gets absolutely nothing, from the billboard except for like a couple $100 fee, if that, and as far as the billboard's effects, it's visual blight. When I went to the neighborhood meeting, I would hear disgusted, sickened, appalled, and they talk about it being modernization. That it's just the intensification of it used to be like one image. It was kind of muted, to some extent because of the lighting. But now it's a series of images every 4 to 6 seconds. And with this accelerating of images, the city doesn't get, anything. And the neighborhood, just gets, accelerated deterioration, of the quality of its life. And this is a terrific neighborhood. I know our council people have done tremendous things here, with the walks, the sidewalks around the parks. And, I just hope that, this is going to be the start of getting this corrected.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming to City Hall. Rick Montejano, Pete Nelson, and Marianne Look.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Rick Montejano, and I've lived in Silver Lake since 1972. When I first decided to get a tattoo, my friends cautioned me to pick something I could live with for the rest of my life. I thought about it for 3 weeks, and then it came to me. I have Silver Lake tattooed on my back. That's how much I love my community. I've been called many things since I lived here, but lately I've been called Billboard Dude because I've been standing underneath that piece of electronic graffiti with a billboard that says, honk if you hate this sign. And let me tell you, there's been a lot of noise. Latinos, blacks, Asians, young, old, gay, straight, wealthy, and those not so wealthy. You've angered a lot of people. What you did was rude. Very, very bad manners. I don't care if you tell me it was legal. We want it taken down. You know you'd never get away with this in Hancock Park or Beverly Hills. How dare you impose this on us? As far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal. It's coming down. The only question remains is who's going to help us get it down. You know, considering the mayor shows up for the opening of an envelope, he should be here. I can assure you that when it comes time to vote, we'll remember who helps us. Finally, I'd like to say to my friends and my neighbors, let's continue to take care of each other and our neighborhood. People trump money.
Thank you, Mr. Montejano. Pete Nelson.
My name is Pete Nelson. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I'm speaking in favor of the motion. There are few things that can change a neighborhood as much or as fast as billboards. Residents of Silver Lake neighborhood are very appreciative of
Mr. Nelson, would you mind maybe pulling out the microphone? There you go.
Thank you.
Closer to you.
The residents of Silver Lake are very appreciative of the improvements the City Council has made recently in our neighborhood. The City Council is building a new library for us. They've installed walking trails around the reservoir, new bike lanes. Unfortunately, all of that goes by the wayside by the construction of one electronic billboard, because that's what people are going to remember. That's what's going to face them every day as they walk home or drive home. And so I'm here to ask you to please adopt the motion and to address the issue of billboard blight in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Ann Cook. I'm a 35-year resident of Silver Lake, a 25-year community advocate for quality of life issues, and serve on a number of committees. Bombardment. Now that I have your attention. The City Council had an opportunity a few years ago to make a difference, and you didn't. They had an opportunity to stand up to Rocky Delgadillo's so-called settlement, and you didn't. We in the community pay the price every day with the monstrous billboards, despite our begging you years ago to remove the illegal and limit legal and ultimately take them down. Instead, we're now faced with moving digital. What's next? Blasting sound? Please don't cave again. The future of our city is in your hands. Stand up and say no to the powerful billboard lobbyists who don't give a damn about quality of life in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speakers will be Alexis Lott, Laura Solagi, and Tanaya Wallace. Are you here?
Hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
As the chair of the Transportation Committee for the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, we feel strongly that this is not only a quality of life issue, it's a traffic issue. Where this billboard is right in an intersection of 4 streets, and it sort of comes at an angle at you. So when you're there at the light, you know, you can get distracted for a minute when it changes from Sean Puffy Combs' abs to, you know, whatever movie display comes up next. There's also a bike lane running along Silver Lake Boulevard, so we're also putting at jeopardy bikers who might be instantaneously distracted or also could inflict with a car that has become distracted. So, I mean, in general in Los Angeles, I ride the bus regularly, and while I really enjoy looking at billboards while I ride the bus, I don't like them as a driver, and the fact that these digital billboards are popping up in other neighborhoods beyond Silver Lake, I think poses a great distraction to drivers.
Can you give us your name again and address?
My name is Alexis Lance. My address is 863 North Dillon Street.
Thank you very much. Laura Solagi, are you here? And then Tanaya Wallace. And that should conclude. Then we'll hear from Noel Hayan from the council member's office.
Hello. I'm Laura Solagi. I live in Venice, and I want to say that the problems of the proliferation of digital billboards is citywide, and it's not just a Silver Lake issue. And this fact-finding effort is long overdue. My friend Mindy, who couldn't be here today, lives a half a block from Lincoln Boulevard in Venice.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're listening. And there's a newly converted digital billboard on Lincoln Boulevard, which is a fairly large, traffic-y street. However, that light from that digital billboard goes through her bedroom window a half a block away, keeping her awake because of its changing light. And this goes on every day, every night. You know, and this is really unfair that people are subjected to this sort of visual pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Tanaya Wallace. Good afternoon.
Hi. I'm the Region 2 representative for the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, and I just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be doing a community impact statement at our next board meeting, but we haven't had a meeting since then, so that's why you don't have one in front of you to support this motion. People are mad, man. They're pissed off. We've gotten a lot of emails as board members. I would say at least 50. I'm the secretary, so I track all of this, and people are very upset. It's a good thing for community organizing, but it also, people really want their voices heard on this. So we'll help you to communicate the message of what you are going to do and how you are going to help the community, and we look forward as the neighborhood council to help facilitate that communication between the city and the neighborhood. Thank you guys very much.
Okay, and I just want to congratulate you on bringing future advocates to City Hall. On the bus. Congratulations. Okay, Ms. Yuen, you have 2 more cards dropped out of the sky, so I'll get these 2 more and then we'll move towards the council's statement. Dennis Hathaway, and I believe it's David Earring. And that should conclude public comment.
Good afternoon. I'm Dennis Hathaway. I'm president of the Coalition to Ban Billboard Blight. I'd like to address 2 points in the motion. The first is number 2, about the existing settlement agreements. The agreement that the City Council adopted in September of 2006 with Clear Channel and CBS was 1 page long. The stipulated judgment that was filed with the Superior Court in February is 40 pages long. And in that 40-page stipulated judgment, it explicitly exempts any of these billboard conversions to digital from zoning regulations. In other words, it's saying zoning regulations do not apply to any of these. The only reason the city can only issue these permits based upon questions of structural or electrical safety. That is in the settlement agreement. And the second point I want to address is number 3, where it asks the question, does CEQA apply to the conversion of billboards? I just want to make a little illustration. You have a painting on your living room wall, and you take that painting off and replace it with a flat screen TV of the same size. Is this a minor alteration? The building department is exempting conversions of digital billboards on those very grounds, calling them minor alterations, so they don't have to go through any environmental review. These use far more energy than a conventional billboard. They have impacts on light. We've heard this on traffic, on quality of life. And I hope that a message should be sent to the building department to stop this and make CEQA apply to these digital billboard conversions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe you. I am listening. I'm just trying to sort out who speaks next. So
before you start my time, there is some problem with the speaker cards. Both Dennis and I had submitted cards earlier.
You're right. They were stuck in item number 3, so I just pulled them out.
Okay, because there are others who wanted to speak as well.
Right, we just found them right now.
Okay, great. My name is David Ewing. I live at 1234 Preston Way. I forgot to mention on the previous item, I'm a member of the Venice Community Coalition, and I'm speaking on their behalf as well. We put a great deal of work into creating a community design overlay for Lincoln Boulevard in Venice. And among the other things in the community design overlay are controls and stipulations on signage. Since you signed that community design overlay into law, there's been a proliferation of signage on Lincoln Boulevard, both on the sidewalks and billboards. As you just heard, we now have our very own digital billboard on Lincoln Boulevard. There are over 50 of these conversions on the west side, by the way. It's a forest of billboards and signs as you drive down Lincoln Boulevard. Now, when you drive over the city line into Santa Monica, all that stops. It's beautiful, it's a boulevard with a couple of grandfathered billboards, almost nothing. So I have to ask myself, why is Los Angeles unable to control its billboards for its own benefit, for its own financial benefit, or for aesthetic and safety reasons? Doesn't seem to happen. In this particular item before you, I'm wondering, why are you going back for advice from the same city attorney who got you into this mess in the first place? He's hopelessly compromised. We all recognize that. Isn't there a way to get outside counsel on this? To get somebody who can give you, some straight talk? It's just a shame. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. Diane Chadwick? Sorry.
Hi, my name's Diane Chadwick. I'm a 16-year resident of Silver Lake. My address is 2823 Tesla Avenue.
Welcome.
I just wanted to add a few additional comments, although I think most of my feelings have been covered already with some of the prior speakers. I wanted to know, with regards to the digital conversions which are currently happening, certainly the one that already happened in Silver Lake, was an environmental analysis conducted and prepared in accordance with CEQA, or was the project determined to be exempt, and if so, why? The environmental checklist in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines appears to have two items related to this billboard in particular, under Topic 1, Aesthetics. These are regarding degrading the existing visual character and quality of the site and its surroundings and creating a new source of substantial light and glare, which adversely affects both day and nighttime views. Also potentially relevant, I found, was a Topic 15 for transportation and traffic. Did the project proponent conduct a new traffic study? I know when the bike lanes were there, it just seems like since that, with that corridor, with the light and motion, with that evening drive time traffic, it's going to cause a lot of slowdown. And that corridor is already just painfully slow if anybody tries to make it home at night. Then lastly, we have the Green City Initiative that was announced a couple years ago. And so for me to drive home and see this usage of electricity, it's just being squandered. And here, so many of us have taken steps in our own homes to trade out CFLs, to insulate our attics, to use Energy Star appliances, and our own city isn't taking steps. I don't know what the power usage is for these billboards, but LA is, as one of the nation's largest cities, a lot of other cities are looking to us, and we need to set an example. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Susan Feller Otto? All right. Are there any other individuals that have not been identified who has written a card? I'll make sure I covered everybody. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm Suzanne Feller Otto. I live at 1975 West Silver Lake Drive. I have lived in Silver Lake since 1987. My husband and I, who he's at work, both of us have volunteered in many community organizations, especially my husband, the Silver Lake Residents Association, the Silver Lake Improvement Association, Committee to Save Silver Lake's Reservoirs, and the Gateway to Silver Lake, which handled beautification at the 101 freeway. So many individual and group efforts on so many parts of our residents have made Silver Lake one of the absolute top, most desirable neighborhoods in Los Angeles. And the digital billboard comes in now, and the troop, the natives are restless. We are not happy. First, I also want to... 50 emails is the tip of the iceberg. I think that count is wrong. I've gotten 50 times 5 myself. I also wanted to correct, that's not a 4-point intersection, it's a 5-point intersection, which you know historically, from a traffic point of view, is one of the most dangerous types of intersections around. The city of Burbank went so far as to redo their big 5-point up by their Costco. They completely re-engineered it. This is a 5-point intersection. I don't even face the billboard. I am furious about the billboard. We have worked so hard to make this a wonderful place. People are just in awe of what the community has done. And in one step, you have just taken it absolutely down to the bottom with this billboard. The point about green and the electricity is just insane. Would you want this billboard in your neighborhood where you live? I'm just speechless at times about the lack of forward thinking on the part of the city, on the part of the council, on everyone's part, that this would be allowed. And who would think that this is a positive move? Positive for who? The money? Positive for Clear Channel, yeah. Not positive for the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, well.
Good afternoon, committee members. Noelle Hyun, Planning Deputy for Council District 13. I want to thank you for your time this afternoon to hear this item, and I also want to acknowledge all our Silver Lake constituents who've made time to come here today. I have submitted to the clerk, and I think you guys have before you, a letter which Council President Garcetti has prepared. So I'm just going to read this into the record. Honorable members of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, addressing billboard, signage, and outdoor advertising blight in our neighborhoods is one of the most complicated challenges facing municipal leaders today. Illegal billboards, conversions to electronic billboards, and other related issues are not only problems in Los Angeles, but also in many other cities such as Portland, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and New York City. Many of my Silver Lake constituents have contacted my office about electronic billboards after a traditional billboard was converted in their neighborhood at the end of September. I agree that we must investigate the legal and legislative tools available to us to effectively manage their placement and impact, particularly in our residential neighborhoods. For example, we should ask, does the California Environmental Quality Act apply to electronic billboard conversions? What remedies exist to limit the impact of electronic billboards on the surrounding community? And how can we ensure that these conversions occur in appropriate areas? Since I introduced this motion on October 1st, Clear Channel has agreed to turn off the sign located at 1701 Silver Lake Boulevard every evening at midnight. They also agreed to dim by 67% the intensity of the sign's illumination. This is a temporary solution, but does not address the larger problem of creating a process for the public and City of Los Angeles to influence the locations and technical aspects of signs as they are converted in our neighborhoods. Under CEQA, projects that may have a significant impact on their surrounding communities must be reviewed through the appropriate public process, which gives neighbors, community advocates, and other stakeholders the opportunity to raise questions and the project proposer the opportunity to address their concerns and needs before the project is permitted. This motion asks the City Attorney and Department of Building and Safety to determine whether electronic billboard conversions can be subject to CEQA review. Requiring a CEQA evaluation would give the public and the city an opportunity to review each proposed conversion's technical aspects, such as the frequency of the content change, view shed, illumination intensity, and hours of illumination. I'm aware that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee has before you a number of motions related to billboards, including efforts to create an accurate inventory and catalog of the existing billboards, implement effective enforcement tools that would broaden the list of responsible parties, and revise the current sign code to create time, place, and manner restrictions that are defensible in court, easily enforceable, and will protect our neighborhoods from the proliferation of billboards. The issue of converting traditional billboards to electronic billboards is another one to add to this list. I respectfully ask committee members to approve this motion and send it to a full City Council vote. Sincerely, Eric Garcetti.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and Councilman Garcetti's effort in responding and addressing this critical issue. We do have a series of motions that we're working on to try to curtail this kind of proliferation, understand what's legal and what's illegal. But I wanted to ask David Lara, are you still here? David? I know I'm putting you on the spot, David, so bear with me. A few weeks ago, if not a couple of months ago, we had the staff from Building and Safety here. We were asking questions about the status of the implementation, the issues of controls, and we asked, what's the number? And we didn't have a number at that time. Do you think in about a week or two we can get some clarity and maybe have Andrew Adelman here speak to us as to what the department is doing and how we're curtailing, and give us a preview, because given that this request has been out there for a while now, in terms of asking what is the number of quote-unquote illegal billboards, and the whole issue of the number. Do we have an answer yet?
We are currently still working on that answer, Councilmember. We are actually been...
Okay, please.
We've actually been, in conjunction with the settlement agreement, and also with the information that we have on inspections that we have been able to conduct. We're still trying to pull all that together.
How soon can you get us that information?
Hector, you want to... I'm going to ask my colleague Hector Buitrago to join me on this.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Hector Buitrago, Chief of the Code Enforcement Bureau. Are you referring to the number of illegal billboards in the city?
Yes.
That would require the implementation of the annual inspection program, which we are currently working on along with the CLA and the city attorney in order to establish the program. It requires a new ordinance, and it requires staffing, and it requires the setting of fees.
Okay, that's an action we took almost 2 years ago?
That is about right.
Okay, can I get a status of when that will be implemented?
We can give you that, yes.
Okay, can I have Mr. Adelman present in committee and give us a breakdown of what is going on?
We can certainly speak to him.
No, we want him here.
Okay.
Okay?
I will mention that to him.
Okay, we'll do that. Again, this is one of those issues that we grit our teeth and we were frustrated, but now we have real impacts occurring in places that are causing the kind of angst that we're sensing and hearing. It's very loud, it's very clear. We need to have an answer. So we'll get that?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. Madam Attorney, before we move to adopt, any other points of view you might want to add, Madam Attorney, on this? No? Okay. Okay, so we will adopt the action as proposed by this motion by Councilmembers Garcetti and Labange, and it'll complement the series of actions that have been taken already by the council. The issue here is enforcement and accountability, and that's what we're going to work on. So that'll be the action of this committee. Thank
Just
you.
for clarity, Councilmember, I believe Councilmember Garcetti didn't add a number of requests. Are you also asking that those requests be forwarded to the city attorney, just for clarification?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Item number 3.
Item 3, Councilman, is a Parks Perry motion. It's directing planning, along with the CRA and DOT and Building and Safety, any other city departments to develop a USC-specific plan. And I believe planning staff is present.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Patricia Diefender for Planning Department staff. I wasn't sure if you wanted to have me wait and just answer questions, or did you want me to say a couple of words about this?
Just give us an overview of where we're at.
Okay. This is a motion that was introduced in council, I believe, last week sometime, and it's being referred here to Plum so that it can be referred to staff. This would mark the initiation or the launching of this proposed specific plan. There are boundaries that are proposed currently that encompass essentially the campus and go loosely to, excuse me, sorry. They're jagged boundaries, but essentially they go to Adams on the north, Hoover and Vermont on the west, Exposition Boulevard on the south, and Figueroa to Jefferson, and then down to Flower Street on the east. Essentially, this marks the beginning of a public process to start to develop a specific plan for the area. This would be a City of Los Angeles land use plan for the area that would try to marry the goals that the university has for growth for the campus, as well as to look at some of the needs of the surrounding community. Many of the community people have been at meetings where they've heard directly from the University of Southern California about what they call their master plan. Their master plan was their internal process for looking at to their stakeholders to find out what their needs are for the coming decades. I think their planning horizon is 2030, to match kind of the city's planning horizon for the plans that we're doing currently. So they are they've done their master planning process. They're kind of handing that over to us now as a city, and we're ready to begin to launch our public process. And all of our plans go through an iterative public process outlined typically in about I think this one might be on a slightly shorter timeline, but an 18-month public process where we do small group meetings, we do workshops, open houses, provide a number of opportunities for people to give input on the process as we go along. So with that, I'll just go ahead and answer any questions that you might have.
Can I just, for the sake of the record and clarity, this is the beginning of a dual track process, one that's sponsored and is moving by the University of Southern California, which is their master plan, which is one track. Then you have the specific plan process moving on a separate track, or are they intertwined?
Actually, the city's process to do a specific plan, it's all in one process at this point. They have identified what their needs are, and the city is initiating, by this motion, the city is initiating a city land use plan for the area. Right. So essentially, they're telling us these are what our needs are, and we are then to take that through a public process and determine how their needs can also be sort of unified with the needs of the larger community, so that we have a plan for the area that allows them to grow in a manner that will support their academic mission, but also support the community. Okay. And as you know from the motion, there are several kind of issues that have already been identified, and the purpose of the public process would be to, further reveal those issues and craft policies and development standards that would help forward some of those objectives.
Okay. I'll hold the rest of my questions. We'll go through the public hearing, and then we'll ask more questions.
Sure. Okay.
Based on the input from the community who's here and the different representatives from the different stakeholders. So we'll move forward. We have Mr. Brian League. Give us your name and address, and you got 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian League. I'm with the University of Southern California. USC, at the request of the city and its neighbors, started preparing a master plan 2-3 years ago. We started this process to identify the USC's needs through the year 2030. We had been in the community for 100 years. We believe we've tried to be a good neighbor, but the university's changed drastically over the last 20 years. We've become a residential university. This has caused great pain on the surrounding neighborhoods. Our students have displaced almost all the rental housing in this neighborhood. This all came out of our master plan process when we were out in the community holding stakeholder groups, public forums, and one of the big issues and one of the big agenda items in our master plan is to produce adequate student housing for our students. The university now draws the majority of its students from out of state. We have the largest student population in the country of international students. They all come to Los Angeles and want to live adjacent to the university. We don't have adequate student housing for them, and that's one of the main goals of our master plan, is to provide this student housing. We feel by providing this student housing, the housing that our students have now occupied can be turned back to the community, and that community can come back into that housing. 4-6 students can pay much higher rents than any family. The university we feel has been a positive influence in the community. We have put millions of dollars into the neighborhoods through Kid Watch and all our other programs. We feel this is the beginning of a process to engage the community. on what our needs are for the next 30 years, and we look forward to the process starting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Rosa Giron. Then we'll have Daniel Wu.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Buenas tardes.
Mi nombre es Rosa Girón y yo soy residente de Estrella Estrella y 21.
So, hi, I'm Rosa Girón, and I'm a tenant and a resident of Estrella and 21st Street.
Vivo por 25 años en esta comunidad y he visto el cambio que ha habido respecto a los desalojos.
I've lived in this community for over 25 years, and I've seen a grand change in all the displacement that's happening with long-time rent control tenants.
A todas las amistades que yo tenía, incluyendo familiares, también han sido desalojados de esta comunidad y he visto que en todo este tiempo cómo ha cambiado esta comunidad.
So in the past 25 years, I've had friends who personally were displaced, and I've seen just the battle of that and losing personal friends of mine in this community that have had to leave, and that's been the big issue.
También ahora hay muchos rótulos que dice for rent, pero la comunidad llega y dice, ¿es estudiante de la universidad? Si no, no le rentamos. Y porque está muy alta también la...
So we see lots and lots of banners in our community that say for rent, for rent, for rent. However, we go, we as community members trying to look for a place to rent, and they ask us the first thing, are you a USC student? And if you're not, they don't rent out to us anymore.
También los dueños de edificios para sacar a la gente, los están discriminando. Les dicen que si no se salen, que van a llamar a la policía, incluyendo sabiendo si las personas no tienen documentos, van a llamar a migración. Y sí es un problema muy grande.
So we're also seeing discrimination practices between landlords, private landowners, who are trying to get a lot of long-time rent control families out of their buildings to make way for students. They'll use tactics such as saying, we'll call the INS or ICE on you or the police, and folks will just leave from one day to another.
También, si ustedes pueden caminar por esta comunidad, van a ver los signs que dice So-Cal USC Student. También he visto cómo los negocios han puesto los colores de la universidad, que es amarillo, rojo, incluso las tiendas que son de dueños hispanos están poniendo descuentos para estudiantes de la universidad. ¿Qué pasó para la comunidad?
So just lastly, I invite you all to come into my community and take a tour and walk around. You'll see these big banners that say SoCal Student Housing, that they're only offering housing for students. And now you're seeing businesses too, local businesses, who are offering free items or free amounts of something or discounts to students only. What about the community who's lived here for years? That's it.
También quería hablarles del parque que tenemos, el único parque que es el Parque Estrella, que es el que está más cerca de esta comunidad. Mis hijos se criaron ahí. Fueron a un parque que era un basurero antes y que era de pandillas y todo eso, pero ahora el parque, la comunidad lo ha cuidado, pero ya no hay niños casi que vayan ahí. Los niños que están son los que están en alrededor, tal vez pueden venir de otras partes, pero ya no están quedando niños para que vayan a jugar al parque que ya está bonito, que la comunidad está cuidando. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
So just lastly, we have a public park that we took it over basically as community residents, and we run it voluntarily. That park, though, is little by little our student and youth population is going down. We no longer have youth in our community because of displacement that's happening. And she said, basically, that's what's going on in the community. And so, thank you for hearing me out.
Well, gracias, señor, por estando aquí and familiar with the park that's in District 1 and it's right by the freeway. It's a lot of work that was put into that park. It's a shame. Okay. Mr. Daniel Wu?
I'll keep time as well. Okay. Hi, my name is Daniel Wu.
I'm Chris Winehill.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak. Both Chris and I are part of a campus coalition called Campus and Community United. We're basically a group of students, faculty, religious leaders who are all very interested in how developments around USC are turning out and how we can promote campus and community partnerships to engage the traditional divide between the campus and the community. One of our main efforts is to support the Figueroa Corridor Coalition and their Unidad campaign to create a plan that benefits both the university and the existing local community. One of our main goals is to find innovative win-win solutions so that both the campus and the community can benefit. Although I'm personally lucky enough to be a resident advisor and have convenient housing, many of my friends are struggling. Many students cannot afford market rate housing. They need affordable student housing. So far, the new housing being proposed, such as the Gateway Project on Jefferson and Figueroa, is planned to be market rate or even luxury student housing. But through informal discussions with different student administrators and things like that, we're very proud to hear that USC is having affordability as an important and vital discussion point in conversations. And we just really want to hope that student housing is created to serve students of all income levels.
Thank you.
And as it was mentioned earlier, the current situation is bad for both students and the local community. Students are in competition with members of the local community with the local community for inadequate supply of housing. We want to help our university live up to its ideals as a community conscious community campus, so that we can serve as a model for university and community coexistence.
Both Chris and I are both very proud to be USC students. Tremendous things have been done through USC, and we just hope that we can continue this conversation and genuinely include both community members and campus members in far-reaching issues like affordable housing, safety, sustainability, and responsible economic development. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, Chris, did you fill out a card?
We were both together.
Okay, maybe we can just fill out a card for the record since you spoke.
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
Make sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. Max Slavkin, just come on up. And then we'll have Monique Uriarte.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having us and for listening. I too want to come before you and very much support this plan moving forward. I'm a student at USC, I live in the area, and last year I served as student body vice president and was very involved with the master plan process, hosting a number of student town hall forums, surveys, focus groups with the university and with community members to see what was needed. And as was mentioned, housing is a huge issue. Students, in addition to being exploited themselves with rents continuing to go up, are feeling terrible about the displacement going on with the members of the community who have been here much longer than we have. We have very limited retail, very limited restaurants. We have almost no sit-down restaurants, but something like 4 Yoshinoya beef bowls and 8 Taco Bells within a block of campus. So it's almost no wonder that there's limited interaction, positive interaction between students in the community, because we have nowhere to go to do it. So we're grateful to see USC finally stepping up to make this happen with the retail, with the housing, with the green space, sustainable economic development. And I'm hopeful that the city can partner with the university to make sure this happens to benefit students and the community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for taking the time. Monique Uriarte, and then we'll have Tafari Bain.
Muy buenas tardes a todos ustedes.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon to all of you.
Mi nombre es Monique Uriarte, soy residente del Estrella Neighborhood 21 y Bonsayo.
So my name is Monique Uriarte, and I'm also a resident and tenant of the Estrella neighborhood, which is 21st and Estrella.
En esta ocasión puedo decir que soy organizadora comunitaria, puedo decir que soy promotora de salud, pero en esta ocasión vengo a decirles que soy la voz de mi comunidad.
So I can put my many hats on. I can say to you all that I'm a community organizer here present today or a community health promoter, but today I'm talking to you all as a tenant and a resident of that community.
And the voice of my community. Ya han escuchado que tenemos, no es un secreto para ustedes que nuestro vecindario está siendo atacado y estamos siendo víctimas de desalojos injustos.
So it ain't a surprise to you all that we've been, our community has been attacked, and we're actually being discriminated and actually being treated as just another citizenry, basically, and we're being displaced.
También no es un secreto que los estudiantes están siendo víctimas de estos tratos.
And it also is not a secret that students from USC are also being gouged because of lots of what's going on in that area.
Quiero comentarles que a pesar de que nuestro vecindario, nuestra comunidad no está dentro de los límites que está contemplando la universidad para su expansión,
However, let me just tell you that the borders that USC is trying to use as their expansion plan, our community isn't in that border, and although we're still affected.
Por más de una década hemos estado viendo los cambios en nuestra comunidad. Estamos viendo cómo estudiantes están llegando buscando un lugar para vivir porque han sido víctimas del mal uso que ha hecho la universidad para ofrecerles vivienda.
So for over a decade already, we've been looking at just the what's going on of just unjust to students, specifically students and community members who are being mistreated in the community by different folks because the university wasn't able to provide housing for their students.
Nuestra comunidad se ha organizado y hemos hecho caminatas y hemos encontrado que en los últimos 5 años hemos perdido más del 25% de nuestras viviendas, donde antes nuestra comunidad, nuestras familias enteras estaban viviendo ahí y ahora tenemos estudiantes.
So in the area that's not included in the borders of what we're talking about today, we did a research project, an action research project with community members where we just walked around that community as a sample of what displacement looked like. And it turned out that we lost up to 50% of our neighbors who lived there in the past 10 years.
Si me puede concluir, por favor.
¿Puedo concluir, pero tengo 4 minutos? ¿No? Ok. En conclusión, solamente quiero decirles que estamos a punto de convertirnos en una población en riesgo de homeless. No queremos que nuestras familias pierdan nuestras viviendas, queremos una solución justa para ambos lados.
So in conclusion, we're basically on the verge of becoming homeless, a lot of the folks who live in this community, because there aren't any homes, and that is basically one of the main reasons that we're here today. Thank you.
Okay. Señor Uriarte. Quiero decir, gracias por su información. Hemos llegado en la Junta Comunitaria hace unos meses.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Lo vimos muy claro qué es lo que está pasando y estamos tratando de responder de una manera donde hay balance, al mismo tiempo respeto a todas las entidades que son parte de esta comunidad.
Sí, muchas gracias. Y creo que si trabajamos todos juntos podemos lograr algo en beneficio para ambas entidades, comunidad y universidad.
And I just shared with Ms. Uriarte that there was a few months ago now, both Councilor Perry and I were invited to a community meeting near the Estrella Park that they were speaking to earlier. And it was an all-day session, and we did have USC representatives there, and we are focused on creating a balance. We're trying to find a solution, and we're trying to do it in such a way where all the stakeholders are treated with respect and dignity, and we come up with a solution. But I want to thank them for their effort.
Gracias.
Gracias a usted. Okay, next speaker. Come on up, sir.
Afternoon, committee members. My name is Tafari Bain. My address is 152 West 32nd Street. I'm with the Figueroa Corridor Community Land Trust. We are a nonprofit organization that identifies land to hold for community use as affordable housing, and we work in the area immediately around USC. I have 3 basic points to make, but we definitely feel like it's a good move for the city to look to develop a specific plan to address that area and to meet the concerns and needs of both the community and other stakeholders in the area. 3 things. The catastrophic rises in land value have resulted in the loss of large amounts of affordable housing units that have been very hard to replace due to the rents, the land value being so high, and also competition in the area for land use. A Pacific plan in the area must address this by encouraging and supporting affordable housing construction in a very active way. 2, the current area boundaries are too limited. When you look at the true impacts of USC's presence and development in the community, we know for a fact that large amounts of displacement of affordable housing units has occurred all the way up to Normandy, at least, and north boundaries all the way past Adams, definitely to the 10 freeway at least. And so we definitely feel like the boundaries currently proposed are too narrow and need to be looked at. The third point, as USC has developed this master plan, it's good to definitely hear a lot of the points that I've been raising around community process and stuff are being brought up, and a lot of those needs are being addressed. But it's very important for us that the specific plan is focused on equalizing the voices of the community, because the master plan that USC is developing, of course, is in their business interest as a business entity, as a school, and we need to make sure that the specific plan raises the value and the voice of the community, small businesses in the area who are being priced out of the area, and other folks, other stakeholders, not just the master plan and its intended audience. In closing, the specific plan must be designed to repair the damage caused to the local community over the past decade and create a stronger mixed income, mixed stakeholder community for the future. Thanks.
Right on the nose. Thank you, Mr. Bain. That's great. Okay. Our next speakers, Nancy Halpern Ibrahim, Chris Whitenhill, and then David Robinson.
Good afternoon. Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon.
Councilman and Committee. My name is Nancy Halpern Ibrahim. I'm the Executive Director of Esperanza Community Housing Corporation. Esperanza is very grateful for the work of Councilman Parks, Councilwoman Perry, and Councilman Reyes to promote the creation of a specific plan to guide USC's proposed expansion. Esperanza shares deep roots in the neighborhood that surrounds USC. Indeed, we straddle the same city council districts that USC does, city council districts 1, 8, and 9. And we have contributed greatly to this neighborhood for nearly 20 years in terms of creating affordable housing for families at low and very low income levels, economic development opportunities, enrichment and education for kids, and of course have created the Promotores program that has been so well represented here today. USC is often described as a great university in a bad neighborhood. While we don't challenge the first half of that assertion, we take great exception to the second. This university sits in our beloved community. We are witness to the fact that USC is surrounded by a valuable and vibrant community, a real neighborhood, as Gail Goldberg might have called it, that has a great deal to offer the university and the city as a whole, and that deserves to be supported and not displaced. Projects generated from this community, as you yourself are familiar, are recognized as national best practice models by national, local, state agencies, as well as university systems in California and throughout the country. Esperanza's vision is to see long-time local residents thrive along with USC. This means creating a plan to assure that the university does not continue to displace, directly or indirectly, the very residents who have done so much to turn their own neighborhood around over the past decade.
Babe, I need you to conclude.
Esperanza hopes to partner with USC and the city and other developers and with the local residents to create and implement a plan that will serve as a nationwide model for responsible university development within a high-density, mixed-income, diverse urban community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Chris Whitenhill, David Robinson, Ben Beach, and Falmi Perez. Then we'll conclude with David Galavis, and that will close the public hearing.
My name is David Robinson. I work for Signage, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Figueroa Corridor Coalition for Economic Justice, which has worked on community development in the USC vicinity for a decade. Over the past year and a half, we've worked particularly hard to educate local residents and other stakeholders about USC's proposed expansion, as well as other large plans and developments in the area. We look forward to participating in the city's creation of a specific plan for the USC area that will truly benefit all stakeholders. So we are in support of the creation of a specific plan. Our major concern is with the ordinance before you is with the boundaries that have been set for the specific plan area. We feel strongly that the boundaries must be expanded. They currently exclude many or most of the areas where new high-density residential or mixed-use development is likely to occur, especially by private developers. The proposed boundaries exclude many of the neighborhoods most heavily impacted by displacement, and you've heard a lot about that. The proposed boundaries even exclude important covenanted affordable housing such as University Gardens just west of Vermont, which includes hundreds of units for which the covenant is set to expire in 2011. So the specific plan must not be limited to the boundaries of USC's master plan, their proposed expanded campus. The plan must also encompass neighborhoods beyond those boundaries where the impacts of USC's expansion are likely to be felt most heavily. It's crucial that those neighborhoods around there be included in the EIR study, in any other nexus study or community impact study that be conducted. So I want to make it clear, we're not proposing that USC expand its own master plan boundaries. We're saying that the city's specific plan boundaries must be expanded. And I just want to clarify one thing. We think it's great that USC is planning to create more student housing on the land it already owns. That will not solve the displacement problem in the area alone, because the rents are continuing to rise, land values are continuing to rise. That's why a specific plan, including the larger area, is truly necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
And one more call for Chris Whitinghill.
He was one of the students who...
All right. So, Ben Beach.
Good afternoon, council members. Ben Beach from the Community Benefits Law Center. We work with municipalities and organizations around the country on issues relating to the community's relationship to economic development, and at the request of Strategic Actions for a Just Economy, have prepared an analysis of 3 issues relating to the specific plan, which we submitted to staff earlier today. I'm going to, in my comments now, briefly just address 2 of those issues, housing affordability and housing discrimination. But before I do, I'd just like to commend to your attention, council members, a study conducted by the Enterprise Community Foundation at the request of USC, which lays out in detail a number of the very challenging housing issues confronting the community immediately surrounding the university. That study, in combination with the community surveys referenced by members of the Figueroa Corridor Coalition and recent articles in the LA Business Journal describing the real estate market in the immediate area, suggest, I think, strongly that area-specific housing-related regulation is highly appropriate for this particular area of the city. First, to the issue of housing affordability. Sage, I think, is rightly interested, as you've heard, in measures that will both preserve the existing stock of affordable housing and ensure that new developments include housing that's affordable to a range of incomes. We've surveyed, at Sage's request, jurisdictions across the state of California, including Los Angeles, and found that a number of jurisdictions from San Francisco to Oxnard to Woodland to our very own city of Los Angeles have included housing affordability measures in specific plans. So there's plenty of precedent for those types of measures here. Secondly, on the housing discrimination issue, we've also researched cases across California and looked at what remedies are common in those cases injunctive remedies that would prevent future instances of housing discrimination. In this case, of course, we're concerned that private landlords on the market in this area are discriminating against families and in favor of students, as you've heard today. So you'll see in our submittal both a copy of that study that I mentioned, as well as a description of those remedies.
Thank you, Mr. Beach.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Felony Perez, and then David Galaviz, and that'll conclude the hearing.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name
Good
is Demi
afternoon.
Perez. I'm a community organizer with Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. I just want to give you a brief snapshot of the work that I'm doing in the proposed area that USC is, of USC's master plan. I'm working in a building, in a 33-unit building, where about 3 years ago, a sign went up in front of their building that said Property Management Associates, aka Cal Student Housing. A year and a half later, when Sage got involved, when I started working with the tenants there, 19 families had already been evicted. So folks had told me, and 2 more were on the chopping block. I was working with the families and encouraging everyone to step up and to go to the court hearings and stand up for their neighbors. And folks said, why? We're not going to get anywhere. These folks are already evicting everyone. But they went anyways, and both evictions, lost. The families were able to stay in their buildings. This year, we had a meeting with City Attorney Janet Carcanon. Folks have really been doing a lot of work to advocate for themselves and to stand up for what they believe is important, which is their housing and their community. Their building falls within USC's proposed expansion plan. I think that it's imperative that these folks, while they're working so hard to understand their rights and to preserve their housing, that they're included in part of this planning process. If today is the first, or if today is one of the first meetings of in the public process, why weren't they invited? We really want to make sure that everyone in this community knows what's happening, that they're the meetings are advertised, they're announced in Spanish as well as in English, the people really have the opportunity to be a part of this process because they are working to preserve their housing and they're just as much a stakeholder as USC is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Last but not least, David Galavis.
Thank you, Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Huizar, and staff. David Galavis, I'm the Director of Local Government Relations for USC. Prior to that, I spent 5 years literally designing many of the community outreach programs at the university. As we all know, USC is the largest private employer in the city of Los Angeles. As my colleague Brian League mentioned, we also have the largest number of foreign students in the entire nation. In the county of Los Angeles, we're the 5th largest employer in the county, so there's always going to be some tension. We feel at the university over the last decades, we've taken great steps to not only alleviate issues raised by our neighbors, but also to become a national model for outreach. Some of the programs we've designed, such as KidWatch, KidWatch LA is designed on that program. We've adopted 14 schools in East LA and South LA that provide academic mentoring, tutoring, after-school outreach programs, and other cultural opportunities for kids. This has been a part of a 2-year process. So as far as the university is concerned, this is like the midpoint. We've had at least 50 or 60 some odd meetings in the community, town halls. We've developed focus groups. We have all that information that we can provide you. Also, under the university's plan, student growth will nominally grow. Until 2030, we're looking at nominal growth both for undergraduate and for graduate students. We're also looking at building housing on land that the university already owns, so we wouldn't have to do anything on any kind of public land. Number 3, we've also committed to no eminent domain under any circumstance. And the last thing is, there was discussion on families and individuals being kicked out of their residences. The university, under any circumstance, did not do that at all. Those are private developers that have done that. And the other thing is that the university, USC Student Affairs, has been working with student groups and student leaders to work with them to make sure that landlords are not taking advantage of the students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galavis. And it's been stated, Mr. Galavis, if you wait for a second, Mr. Galavis, the assertion has been made that the current specific plan boundaries essentially are the same as the boundaries from the master plan. There is no objection. Do you see any objection from the USC interest groups of expanding those boundaries beyond the master plan? Was there ever any discussion not to have it? I mean, I just want to get your perspective on that. Please, Mr. Lee.
Thank you. The university sees this specific plan as a process to allow the university to meet its needs through the year 2030. We recognize there's a lot of community needs, and we believe there's other processes for that, community plan update and other city programs. The specific plan that we envision allows the university to expand its programs and its mission in an orderly way in the community, and it's primarily addresses university-owned property.
No, I understand that. I know there are entitlements and by right issues that the university has. I respect that. I understand that completely. But the specific plan is a city-sponsored effort. And so in light of that, I'm going to be asking the staff about expanding these boundaries. And I'm assuming there's no objection from the USC side.
We have no objection to working with the community in a broader geography. We're just concerned about the process of a specific plan for areas that are outside of the university's control.
Right, and we're not expecting for you to control those things that you can't. So that's a given. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I would like to come on up. I'd like to talk to the team that's working on this. Come on up, Faisal. In terms of process, is there any reason why we cannot expand the boundaries for the specific plan?
Patricia Diefendorfer, staff for planning. The boundaries are, as proposed, are a starting point. I mean, from our perspective, from staff's perspective, that's one of the things that when we start to go out to community and we talk about boundaries. Talk about doing a specific plan. Boundaries are usually one of the things that we talk about. I think it is worthwhile to mention that there is a community plan that is also being updated for this area. Currently, the Faisal Roble here also from planning is heading that effort. There are definitely ways to use both the specific plan and the community plan to lay groundwork for the types of issues that have been brought up here. And the public process for both of these plans is where we would try to suss out what those issues are and try to address them.
Okay, Mr. Faisal.
Good afternoon, Faisal Roble. Actually, as I listen, the planning department would consider the area of this specific plan as what we call a hot spot. The social concern is that you have heard from both sides. Gives planner is a serious challenge to address. Over the weekend, I have looked at several examples where similarity can be drawn between USC and this specific plan and say other campus neighborhoods such as our own backyard Riverside. I think the issue of expanding the district and the boundaries to me is not an issue that you cannot do. You can change the boundaries because it has to, one is the specific plan is enacted and the motion is in process. It's a city process. It's no longer a USC process. So if the council and the chamber feels that it's to the greater interest of the community, then we can expand the boundaries. There's yeah. The second issue I'd like to address is of all the issues that have been addressed, such as displacement, affordable housing issues. All those are expressly expressed in the goals of the existing community plan, as well as they came up in the visioning of the current ongoing community plan process that we are carrying. So these are issues that both USC and the neighborhood at large need to be ready to engage. It's not only one side that some group is complaining and the other wants to go ahead with the issues that they have at hand. I think these are issues that are facing the greater neighborhood.
I want to make sure that we are setting a tone that speaks to this notion of partnership. There has to be a partnership between the city council offices, all three, the city planning department, along with the stakeholders and USC. We want to see USC succeed in its goals. We also know we need to address some very real tensions and realities that are occurring to the communities around it. That being said, when is the next meeting where it becomes clear the role of the specific plan and the role of the community plan update? I mean, for those of us who work in the trenches of the planning department and all its jargon, I want to make sure that the Senor Rodriguez, who lives at the corner, understands what's going to happen. And so I want to simplify and be very clear as to the process. So when is the next meeting where that begins to occur?
Well, one is we declared that the motion sets the tone for a specific plan. Then, as Patricia earlier said, we will invoke the citizen participation process that we are mandated to follow. Anytime we have the possibility to marry the two processes, we are more than willing to do that. At the end of the day, the specific plan should be an implementation tool for the goals and objectives in the community plan. So we will make sure that the two processes are married, that the notion that this is a USC specific plan is very much spelled out. We will very much make sure that it's a community plan process as well as a specific plan process handled by the city, not USC.
Okay.
Patricia Diefendorfer, just to add to that, as I mentioned before, we have a public process that we use for all of our plans, any plan that we do, and this is essentially the kickoff to do that, to start that process. And for example, one way that we're looking to do coordinated outreach when possible is, tonight is a good example. There's a meeting of the South LA Community Plan Advisory Committee, and I'm actually going to that meeting to give them just a quick overview of the specific plan, the proposed specific plan, and let them know about any future meetings and process and next steps. So we're going to begin to do that right away.
I'm going to be talking with key stakeholders and starting to hold small group meetings. At some point, we're going to start doing the environmental process, and that will involve public notification and meetings. So this is essentially the starting point for all of that to occur.
Okay. When you look at sharing information, what accompanying documents or tools that can be packaged to address impacts and community benefits? In other words, we had a community in another part of the city who was very much insulted by the use of Legos.
Use of what? Sorry?
Legos. So I want to know what tools, what documents are you using so that the presentation is one that's viewed as being respectful, for lack of a better word.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Faisal Roble again. We recently conducted the West Adams Baldwin Hills Lamert workshop with 200 people who attended. We were commended both by the planning director as well as by the community and the planning commission, because we did not just show up at that workshop one Saturday. We built the momentum from a year ago all the way till we were at the workshop. We very much employed first by going to the neighborhood councils and the CACs in the areas, then going to small groups, showing them the issues and opportunities that came up early on, then digitizing those, mapping them, showing renderings, and then giving them alternatives. This is what you said, this is what the planner thinks, this is what can be done, this is what can be done right now by right, and this is what can be done with the alternative of the plan if adapted. So by the time we went to the workshop after a year and a half, everybody who showed up at that community meeting knew very well what they put in and what came out of that process. I like to employ the same process as a manager of this project.
And the use of development agreements and how we look at land and how we generate community benefits, is that something that you're going to be using as well?
Right. Development agreements sometimes accompany specific plans, and they are a way to impose different kinds of regulations that you might not employ through the land use plan. So the development agreement is one option, and a good example of that is the Los Angeles Sports and Entertainment District specific plan, where a development agreement accompanied the specific plan. The development agreement is a sort of a contractual agreement between the city and the developer to provide some benefits in return for getting a certain level of predictability in developing their project. So that is something that we will explore through this process.
I do see that the motion cites Districts 8 and 9, but I'll be asking my colleagues if we can make a friendly amendment to add District 1, since the impact of this strain that we're feeling regarding housing is definitely hitting District 1 at the northern end of the master plan of USC and the northern end of the proposed specific plan. And I'm hoping, and I'll be arguing for expansion of these boundaries to discuss these salient issues when it comes to impacts of the community. But I'll wait for you to get your process rolling so we can begin those types of requests. But Councilman Weistar, did you have any questions or observations? So we can take the action where we can move to approve. That's good. Thank you, Adrope. District 8, I totally overlooked. You didn't fill out a card. I want to make sure you were okay. District 9, 8, I'm sorry. Okay, because I didn't see your name on the cards if I didn't call you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I get them confused.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Dilara Rodriguez, Planning Deputy for Council Member Bernard Park, CD8. First, I would like to thank really the vision of our partner USC. They are in my opinion. I think they are like the cornerstone of our district, and truly they are the best partner. And also the division of the staff for looking at the specific plan. One thing about the issue of boundaries, it's extremely important for, when you're talking about the boundaries in the future, we have the exposition line. There are millions of dollars that are being spent on the transit corridor. And one of the visions that the councilman has is to create transit-oriented districts where there will be mixed use of housing and, shops, restaurants, to create that, the livability along that corridor. So I'm hoping that USC will be able to expand this vision, not just to the north, but actually to look as a good partner. What can you do with these transit-oriented districts where you can create housing for faculty and staff and use the system to come without having the issues of, you're mitigating for transportation and parking by using the exposition line as a unit. And then also in response to the questions how we are going to coordinate, it is extremely important for us that as we are doing the South LA Community Plan update process, we have an advisory body in place. And as Patricia mentioned, she is going to become one of our speakers on every single month when we meet, coming and updating on what we are doing, because they do represent the neighborhood councils and the community that we have in CD8, CD9, CD1, and part of CD15 also. So this whole process is not going to be happen in vacuum. We have also the South LA Transportation Master Plan, which covers the same area. So those will also be included. We're trying to create a cohesive vision for the future, and the specific plan, as Faisal said, is going to become the first element of implementation. But we truly want USC to look outside the boundaries, a little bit south of Expo, and along the line to really strengthen the vision that we have. Thank you.
And you also happen to be a USC alumnus, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right. Next.
David Roberts, Economic Development Deputy for Councilmember Parks. I, like you, Councilmember Reyes, are a UCLA alum, so we look at things a little differently sometimes.
We got to get past that, okay? This is all about the city.
This is all about the city. Real quick, just a couple of things. I know a couple of the speakers mentioned concerns about displacement. I know that's a concern of yours as well as a bordering council district, but just for the record, just wanted to indicate that it's been a big concern of Councilmember Parks as well, and we did institute and introduced a motion that turned into a citywide ordinance that was approved by the Planning and Land Use Management Committee last month for the off-campus housing overlay district, which I think is going to be a key tool towards controlling that issue. The other thing with the specific plan is the potential, I think, Brian, if I have the numbers correct, it's perhaps an estimate to establish as many as 7,000 units of housing, beds, excuse me. There, we think, the creation of student housing for undergraduate, for graduate level students, and then hopefully again for their workforce, not only the faculty, but the staff who works here on the campus and typically comes from, our neighborhoods, folks who are truly workforce, at that 50% to perhaps 120% of area median income, to look at housing development for them as well. With those points, I think we're looking at this thing holistically. It's not just the specific plan, it's the off-campus housing overlay zone, it's the Figueroa General Plan Amendment to increase density, as Delara indicated, as well as looking at TOD opportunities around the Exposition Light Rail line. The other thing is the fact that this is located within a redevelopment project area. It's the Exposition University Park project area, so the CRA and the ability to generate tax increment, and 20% of that tax increment that goes into affordable housing production. Councilman Parks has been really key in letting the university know that he is really concerned about USC perhaps acting like Pac-Man and buying properties up in the neighborhood. And the concern is once you buy those properties and take them off the tax rolls, we lose that generation of tax increment funding, which then results in less money to build affordable housing in this neighborhood. So I know the university is very aware of that concern and is looking at partnerships where they would be keeping the properties on the tax rolls and having private developers look at developing the housing product. As far as some of your amendments, a keen oversight. We, of course, would want the first council district to work with Council District 8 and Council District 9. I think Marie Rumsey from Council District 9 will be working on this matter closely.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we'd like to move to approve the motion as amended, including community plan staff amendments that are attached and been referred to the staff. So Barbara, I think they've submitted that to you. And also prepare a nexus impact study in conjunction with the environmental impact report to assess the impacts of specific plan development on public infrastructure, facilities and services, and plan for the provision by applicants of such facilities to be phased with development. So that would be the action of this committee. Have a second on that? Great. So that'll take care of item number 3. The attached amendments essentially achieves the following: ensures that through the specific plan, the unified vision fostered for USC and community, making the specific plan a benefit for USC and the community, as well as ensure specific plan consistent with the community plan update currently being conducted. So that would be the action of this committee. Thank you very much. Roberto, I think we have one more.
Yes, Council.
You have something else to add, sir, before we close? Because we just acted.
Again, David Roberts with Councilmember Park's office. Is this going to be going forthwith back to council?
It'll be going to council as soon as we can get it there.
Perhaps council for next week?
Can we get there for next week?
Well, all that's before the committee now is the adoption of the motion.
Right.
We can send that forward to council next week as requested.
That's fine.
We'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sí se puede. All right. Okay. All right. Last item. Thank you.
Yes, Councilman. The last item is item 6. It's a report from the mayor, director of planning, and CPC. It has to do with a disapproval of a general plan amendment and approval of a zone change. It's for a 12 condominium dwelling unit project in CD6.
Okay.
Good afternoon, committee members. Frank Kwan with the Planning Department. I was a hearing officer of the case, and now I come to you with a recommendation from the Planning Commission to deny the general plan amendment and zone change and approve the building line removal. I really don't have much else to say about this at this point. I understand there's some additional documents that the council office and the applicant might want to bring up, but
we do have some cards on this.
Present that.
Yes. We have Daniel Skolnick, who is representing the district. We have Mike O'Gara, president, Mary Benson, and Jim Brewer. I'd like to hear from you before we take the next step. Mrs. Skolnick, would you like to speak first or last? Last? Okay. Let's bring up, this closes public comment on item number 6, so no more cards, please. But we do have 2 minutes for Mr. Mike O'Gara, for Mary Benson, and Jim Brewer, and then David Spriegel. So come on up, please.
Good afternoon, council members, committee members. My name is Mike O'Gara. I live at 9301 Cayuga Avenue in Sun Valley. It's about 5 blocks from this project. There's many reasons that this project was not approved as the applicant requested. The main one was there just is not enough room on this lot for the number of units he wanted to place on the property, 30 units. The project is immediately adjacent to the freeway, Highway 5, in the back, and the Sheldon Street off-ramp to the west. Very unhealthy air quality, a lot of noise. We had concerns about the ability of fire trucks accessing the property because you couldn't get into the back of the property if residents were trying to flee from a fire. There's only one road, one ingress, one egress. I was told if the property was 5 foot longer, it would have required 2 roads. In one meeting, the applicant told us the Sheldon Street off-ramp at that location was on a Caltrans list to be redesigned. We should wait to see what that design is before anything is built here. There is almost no recreation space allowed for in the applicant's model. There was nothing in this project as originally proposed that would really be called green. There's a mobile home park immediately adjacent to this small odd-shaped lot, and that is what this should be used as, an extension of the affordable housing that is represented by the manufactured housing. In the findings of Mr. Kwan, he says the general plan text, the Sun Valley Latuna Canyon Community Plan text includes the following relevant land use goals, objectives, policies, and programs. Goal 1 is a safe, secure, and high-quality residential environment for all economic, age, and ethnic segments of the community. As the applicant's application is, it is not that. And what Frank Kwan has done is an excellent job of separating the wheat from the chaff there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mary Benson.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Benson. I live at 11070 Sheldon Street, and I'm here representing Sun Valley Neighborhood Council as the chair of their land use committee. One of the things we were kind of disappointed is the tentative tract filing and this city plan change for a general plan amendment are not flowing concurrently together. We feel that those are always problematic because there can be, with the city plan change, a difference in the original envisioned tentative tract. What we have here is a lot of cumulative impacts, a lot of cumulative changes to this particular segment. This isn't a puzzle piece that can be looked at separately, but in conjunction we have over 150 units that have been entitled within 500 feet of this. We have a senior citizen CRA center right across the street, a new small lot subdivision right across the street, just a little bit to the north, and we also have a 1,600 brand new great junior high school that is going to be accessed by the intersection that is just south of this project. The traffic is going to be completely different than what it was when this project was originally applied for. The quality of life and the access to this property always gave us concerns, especially considering that there are also two freeways and the freeway traffic is always backed up here, and there was a big fire here that could have directly impacted these applicants. The other issue is the watershed issue. We need water more than we need affordable housing, and this will definitely impact the watershed. We have trouble with flooding. The trailer park's drainage comes directly onto this site, and we feel that the Frank Kwan's recommendation for the change to RD5 is the real solution to this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Jim Brewer.
Excuse me, Councilman.
That's okay, Mr. Brewer.
My name is Jim Brewer. I'm here for the applicant Spiegel Development. Our new address is 22801 Ventura Boulevard in Woodland Hills. This property is, as already described, is basically the non-conforming land use of the neighborhood to our south between the Golden State Freeway and Laurel Canyon. There's manufacturing uses. Across the street to our south is commercial. And then directly across the street is the R3 senior citizen project, the CRA, which has a density of about 2.5 times of that being requested. This project started out about 3 years ago when we were asked to look for freeway locations along the Golden State Freeway within a quarter of a mile of on and off ramps for higher density residential possibilities. This project was first presented to neighbors, specifically the mobile home park people to our north, and they had no problems with the development of this property. Their concern, though, was that because our application was asking for a zone change of a small part of our property, which is mobile home park, they thought that that meant that there was going to be an effect on their mobile home park zoning. And even though we explained that their license to operate as a mobile home park is issued by the state, They are basically accountable to the state, and that the city of LA does not have jurisdiction over their property. They weren't convinced, so that's why we didn't include their property in the batching case for the master plan amendment. And at the same time, that's the reason why we have basically stayed away from any ideas of development of the property to the north. We went to the council office in summer of '06, and in 3 separate meetings, the council office asked us to reduce density from 33 to 30 units, and subsequent to that, when the neighborhood council approved our project in the beginning of '07, we were asked to reduce to 28, and we have subsequently reduced that staff recommendation down to 26.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is David Spiegel.
Hi, I'm David Spiegel. Originally, we went in for 33 homes here and met with the council office and the neighbors, and that was acceptable to the council office. We then met more with people, cut that down to 30. Our final number after more review is 26, not the 30 that's in front of you. We still had council office support. As Jim Brewer said, the state has the mobile home park. That is not one of our designations in the city. It is a world unto itself and shouldn't influence this. Across the street, there's an R3 commercial lot. To the south is commercial. Across the street is commercial. Behind us is the freeway. Also, we have met, and there is a design that Caltrans has approved for that exit. We also have a sound wall. We'll also meet any and all mitigation that would be imposed to make this habitable. Also, I'd like to call your attention to the fact that this will be some of the most affordable housing going on in that area, which the city greatly needs. When it comes to traffic, it's my understanding that the perfect place to have traffic is next to freeways, where on-ramps, off-ramps may be easily located. Laurel Canyon is a thoroughfare and highly trafficked right there. And other than that, we also do have a letter from the time when we were applying that does give us the support of the community, which may now not be there. But we did have it, and we did act in earnest throughout the last several years on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And our last speaker is David Skolnick.
Thank you. Daniel Skolnick, Planning Deputy for Councilman Tony Garnes.
Good afternoon.
Our office is in support of the 26-unit project and the general plan and zone change as applied for by the applicant. We would also like to talk about a couple of technical issues here, and that has to do with the appeal. Apparently there was some misinformation going around regarding the appeal for this commission report.
I don't have an appeal. There's no appeal.
Well, there actually was an appeal filed by the applicant, and the applicant does have a receipt for this appeal. And the public counter, not quite understanding the situation, other staff members asked for or recommended that the appeal be retracted. And so, do we have a copy of that appeal?
Mr. Skolnick, let's do this. Given the amount of information we have in front of us, I'd like to continue this for 1 week.
Understood.
Okay?
Thank you.
We'll continue this for 1 week. Okay. That being said, any other items on the agenda?
No, Councilman, just public comment.
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.